So this morning I want to speak on positioning. And the title of my message is Few Position Themselves. Few position themselves. That's the title for all those guys taking notes. Come on. Who's taking notes with paper, notepads? Oh yeah, so good. Vintage. Is that vintage now? Yeah. I said to this person, if you're not aware, I just came back from a youth camp and I have never felt this old before in my entire life. One of the kids didn't know what a USB was. Yeah. So, if you want to feel old, just get around some of the youth guys. Man, it makes you feel old. But the reading today is from Matthew 22, verse 1 through to 4. Jesus spoke to them again in parables, saying, "The kingdom of heaven is like a king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his servants to those who had been invited to the banquet to tell them to come, but they refused to come. Then he sent some more servants and said, 'Tell those who have been invited that I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and fattened cattle have been butchered.'" I don't think that was MJ. I don't think... So, some of the guys in the front here have cattle and they've named them. So one of the names is MJ. Anyways, bad joke. Anyways, we'll keep it moving. And everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet. But they paid no attention and went off. One to his field, another to his business. The rest seized his servants, mistreated them, and killed them. The king was enraged. He sent his army and destroyed those murderers and burned their city. Then he said to his servants, "The wedding banquet is ready, but those I invited did not deserve to come. So go to the street corners and invite to the banquet anyone you find." So the servants went out into the streets and gathered all the people they could find, the bad as well as the good, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes. He asked, "How did you get in here without wedding clothes, friend?" The man was speechless. Then the king told the servants, "Tie him hand and foot and throw him outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are invited, but few are chosen." Or in other translations, "Many are called, but few are chosen." Now that phrase, has anyone heard that phrase before? Many are called, but few are chosen. I believe a better understanding of that verse or that line or that statement is all are called, but few position themselves to be chosen. All are called, but few position themselves to be chosen, which is where the title of my message comes from. Few position themselves. Point one, it's time to position yourself. It is time, church, for you to position yourself. I have recently joined a football team. I finally caved and I've decided to join a football team. It's not anything fancy, but I will be playing for Real Madrid next season. Just joking. It's nothing like that at all. But I've recently joined a football team and it's got me thinking around team sports. And us as a church, if we're not aware, we're actually part of a team sport or a team lifestyle. But just for the analogy, we're part of a team sport, right? And we're on the God team. I know it's a little cheesy, but we're on the God team. And we have teammates. And we are called to work with our teammates. We are called to partner with our teammates. And not only are we on the God team with teammates, we also have coaches and managers and things like that to really support us playing this team sport. If you want to win, it is important to be on the right team. You could be literally the best player in the world, but if you are on the wrong team, your success will be limited. your potential, your God-given potential will be limited not because even of you, but because you are positioned on the wrong team. I love what it says in Proverbs 13, verse 20. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Whoever walks with the wise, even if you're not that good of a player yet, if you train with good players, you're going to become a very good player. If you train with people that are bigger than you, you're going to grow and you're going to become bigger. I love the phrase where it says, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I've heard, statistically speaking, financially, the average of your 5 closest friends will most likely be, of their financial or their net worth, will most likely be your net worth. So if you thought of your 5 closest friends, the average of their net worth tends to be your net worth. You are the average of your 5 closest friends. Now, I would go a step further to say that your spiritual averages work pretty similar. The average faith of your 5 closest friends will most likely be your faith, or your level of faith, I'll say. The average compassion of your 5 closest friends will probably be your compassion. The average of generosity of your 5 closest friends will most likely be your average. Friends, who are we walking with? Which teams are we on? Who do we allow to speak into our world? Who are around us that are going to take us into our future? I love what Pastor Mark says. He says, people are the key and they're going to take you into your future. People. It's not other income streams, it's not other this, it's not other that. It's people. It's people, especially in the faith, especially in the kingdom of heaven. It's people that are going to take us into our next. In your sphere or in your inputs, do you see wisdom come through? Or do you see fools? Have we got any friends with any fools represented here? Don't put your hand up. Also, don't point if they're sitting next to you. That's never a good idea. Some people started. Do we walk with wise people or do we walk with fools? What team are you on? Now, you can't just be on the right team either, but you have to work with the right team and you have to work with the coach. You could be in the best team, but not be in unity, and still your potential is so limited. It's so limited. I remember a few years ago in the World Cup, there was a Spanish team who, as individuals, were incredibly talented, incredibly skillful. But the moment they hit the pitch and had to pass the ball to each other, they were horrible. They were terrible. And I remember just thinking to myself, how could such a skillful, talented team be so bad? But see, because God has this funny way of putting what you need in other people and putting what they need in you. And he goes, go on, time to walk the walk of faith. And he has this funny way of asking you to be humble with what he's put in you, because you can't receive when you're prideful. You can't receive when you're prideful, by the way, if you're not aware. You can't receive because you already know everything. You already have everything. So he has this funny way of putting people around you that are going to take you to your next. I mean, look at Judas. He walked around for 3 years with Jesus in the flesh, with literally the greatest team of all time, spiritually, by the way. Man, imagine being one of the disciples, being on that team. Oh my word. Peter's like jumping out of the boat and whew. He was on the best team with the best coach in history. To this day, he's still going. But yet, he missed it. He missed it. He missed it. And it wasn't because of the people around it. It was because something was going on in his heart. You could be in the right rooms with the right people and the right coaches, but if your heart is not in the right position, you're not going to receive anything. Church, can I challenge us today? What is our position? What is our position? Sometimes they'll talk about, in soccer, they'll talk about being out of position, which tends to set you up for a loss. When you're out of position. The ball was coming your way, but you were too busy being out of position. Friends, we need to make sure that we are in the right position. Let's position ourselves for opportunity and for breakthrough. Let's position ourselves as stewards of the kingdom of heaven. Let's position ourselves to be chosen. The call is out there for all of us. All are called, but few are in position for when the ball comes. Jesus is waiting, looking for a generation that will just be in the position for him to pass them the ball. Go. There's a goal on the line. I need someone to be in position for me to call them. Which brings me to our second point. How to reposition ourselves. Rudolf, I'm stuck on the wrong team, or Rudolf, I'm on the right team, but in the wrong heart posture. Rudolf, how do I reposition? How do we do it? I'm out of position, Rudolf. How do I do it? To be honest, there's like a billion ways to reposition yourself. You could fast, you could pray, you could read your word. You can ask people to catch up. You can ask them questions about how their journey's going, how have they gotten to where they are, all sorts of things like that. But I believe one of the greatest places to start is on your knees before God. I believe one of the greatest places to begin the process of repositioning is on your knees before the great presence of God. The best time I've seen this is the story of Peter walking on the water. I know I always reference this story, but that's because it's the greatest story ever. I love that story. But I've actually got some actors who I've spoken to earlier. So I've got, where's my Peter? My Peter, I've got a disciple here. It's crazy. I've got a few disciples. All the disciples come up and you're in the boat. You're going to be in the boat. We're going to do a bit of a reenactment. No, this is the boat right here. Thank you. It's very exciting. We've got humans up here. Actually, I feel like we need another 2 disciples. Josiah, did you want to come up and be a disciple? Is that okay? Can we welcome Josiah and Brett? Brett, did you want to be a disciple as well? Just jump in the boat. Oh, yeah. Jump in the boat. So good, yeah. So good. Dad's already getting in the storm. So good. So here's the disciples, right? I've got a Jesus that's sitting over here, and he's going to walk on the water in a moment. But this is one of the most incredible stories of repositioning that I've personally ever read in the Word. So I'm going to just... Yeah. I know, right? They're ready to take the nations. Come on. Okay, here we go. So Matthew 14, verse 22 to 30. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat, like we just saw, and go on ahead of him to the other side. While he dismissed the crowd, after he dismissed them, he went up on mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. So the disciples are getting buffeted. They're on the boat. Yeah, there you go. Right? The disciples are in the boat. Right? Everyone see the picture? Now, a bit of context. The disciples were used to rough waves because they were fishermen, a lot of them. So this wasn't just any storm. This was, this was like a raging storm. Right? Then, shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. Oh. So he's being like Jesus, and the storm's still going. It's not stopped. When the disciples saw him, so you guys see him. Walking on the lake, they were terrified. They weren't waving, they were terrified. Yeah. It's a ghost, they said. Someone say it. It's a ghost. Well, Peter didn't say it. Someone else said it. Brett, it's a ghost. Then Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid."
Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid.
Yeah. All of a sudden the storm just paused. It didn't pause, it kept going. "Lord, if it is you," Peter replied, "tell me to come out to you on the water."
Lord, if it is you, tell me to come out upon the water.
And then he said,
Sure.
not what he said. Yeah, all right, mate. Jesus said, "Come." He said, authority, it's Jesus, come on, authority, come. Then Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me."
Lord, save me.
Obviously, Jesus got him. They walked back to the boat. And everyone just worshipped Jesus, which don't do that right now because we're just acting. But can we give the actors a round of applause? Maybe seated. So good. I think there was a few Oscars there. So good. You see, this is the greatest analogies that I've seen of this principle, that all are called, but few will position themselves to be chosen. You see, Peter was on the right team initially. It's the disciples, right? He's on the right team. But when pressure comes, can I tell you, when pressure comes, sometimes the right team will turn to the wrong team because of where they go when pressure hits. They could be the best people, but when the pressure hits, they could be snapping, they could be raising their voices, there could be, just massive things that could go wrong when pressure hits. So sometimes the right team, can start like the right team, but with pressure, turn into the wrong team. But see, Peter's on the right team here, but then it turned to the wrong team. And then he saw Jesus. Everyone in the boat saw Jesus. And they're all yelling, "Oh, it's a ghost, it's a ghost." Sometimes when we see, especially when we see supernatural things happen, "Oh, it's a ghost, it's evil, it's wrong, it's this, it's that, no, that can't be God." Or when we read the Bible and we read these stories of these bold men and women of faith going and sharing the gospel and things like that, we can see it and go, "Oh, that's for them. I'm terrified, there's a storm. Church, can we be like Peter? That when we see the things in Scripture, when we see God moving, when we read what God did, how Jesus walked, that we would go, Lord, if it is you, call me out on the water. Lord, if it is you, if it's not you, I don't want a bar of it. But God, if it is you, call me out. Peter wasn't chosen yet by that stage, by the way. But that was the moment of repositioning. That, Lord, if it is you, call me out. He got in position for the ball. And then what did Jesus say? It is I, come. And by that calling, Peter was chosen. And he got out of the boat and started walking on water. I cut the story off because people always emphasize, oh, Peter started sinking because he looked at the storm. And each one of us, when we start walking by faith, will have storms. And sometimes we forget to walk by faith. We start sinking. But he walked on water. He walked as Jesus walked. Not in a prideful sense, but in an obedient sense. In an obedient sense. Friends, we're called to walk as Jesus walked. Jesus died on the cross, but he also rose again and walked out. And he said, I'm the first of many brethren. Come follow me. Come be on my team. To be on Jesus' team is to sort of start to even just start. Just dip your toe in. Just, ooh, that's pretty cold because it's windy, but that's okay. Even just to get going. For some of us, this is a word. We get stuck at the cross and we forget that Jesus is still alive. The complete, our faith, all it is just coming back to the cross, then going back and sinning, and then, oh, Lord, forgive me, and then just doing the same cycle the whole time. And that is important to come back to the cross, don't misunderstand. But it's also important to go, okay, Lord, help me take my grave clothes off. I've got to take the grave clothes off. I've got to start walking as you walk. Lord, if this stuff is in the Bible, would you teach me how to do it? All are called to walk like that, but few will position themselves to be chosen. And the way to position yourself is to get on your knees, open the Word and say, Lord, if this is you, I see demons coming out of people. I want to see that today. I saw that over the weekend, actually. It was crazy. Demons are still around, and we have authority to cast them out. Lord, if it is you, would you call me? Lord, if it is you, I see this nation, I see the nations of the world, and I believe they need salvation. And I'm like, man, Lord, if it is you putting this desire in my heart, would you call me? Would you empower me? Would you breathe your power into me? That's how you get guys like Billy Graham. They will go to an entire stadium and see millions saved because they just do this prayer consistently. Lord, if it is you, would you call me out upon the water? But you've got to start. I believe one of the great separators in the faith between spiritually mature and spiritual infants is found in this story. To pray bigger and bolder prayers. To not just pray, Lord, save me, but to also pray, Lord, would you teach me how to walk like you? If all your prayers got answered today, if every single one of your prayers got answered today, would your world change? Or would the world change? Would your world change? Or would the world change? How big are our prayers? Are they really self-centered? Or are they Christ-centered? Are they our own personal missions? Or are they the Lord's mission? Like how Jesus prayed. How did he pray? Lord, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. He didn't pray, let my opinions be done. He prayed, your will be done. What if we started praying dangerous prayers like that? Lord, your will be done in my workplace. So I wrote down a few things that we could do. I call it colouring in your prayers. To colour in your prayers. So to pray things like, Lord, today would you use me? But then not just to stop there, but to go, a way you could colour that in is, Lord, would you give me eyes to see? So you pray, Lord, would you use me? But God, would you also give me eyes to see? Would you give me eyes to see? See, because then we're not as blind as we used to be, right? We pray, Lord, would you give me eyes? Lord, would you use me today? And then we get to the servo and someone's like, oh man, I have no hope anymore. And we're like, oh, great, I'm just here for the fuel. All right, see you, God bless. All of a sudden we start praying, Lord, would you give me eyes to see? And all of a sudden we get in front of that cashier and all we could feel is the love of Jesus for them. That this is a created being of God and he loves them. Lord, would you give me eyes to see? Lord, would you use me? Even that's such a dangerous prayer to the kingdom of darkness. Or you could say, would you make me sensitive to your spirit? Would you make me sensitive to the promptings of your spirit? Billy Graham told this analogy where he said, I'm like a Mustang, one of these big, strong horses. And he said, I'm like running. One of those war horses, essentially, full of authority and power, the great Billy Graham. But he said, the Holy Spirit is like my rider, just sitting on the back of the horse. And at the slightest touch of the reins, I turn. We as Christians are called to be like those Mustangs, full of power and authority, driven, motivated, but sensitive. Sensitive to the promptings of the Spirit. That, hey, child, you're running the wrong direction. You've got to go that way. Yes, Lord. Like war horses, but sensitive. Lord, would you make me sensitive to your Spirit? Or you could say, Lord, today, would you use me to spread your joy? Today, my focus is going to be joy. And nothing can steal my joy today. Some of us, our joy needs a bit of durability. Unshakable. Today, my one focus is going to be to spread joy. And can I promise you, that day there's going to be a ton of things that are going to come try to steal your joy. Because the kingdom of darkness hates people filled with joy. Lord, would you give me an opportunity to share my faith with somebody today? And would you give me the boldness to share it? Would you give me the boldness to share my faith? We have to ask the Lord to move us to a practical faith. To a faith that walks, not a faith that just talks. Would we ask God this week, Lord, would you make my faith practical? Not just in word, but in deed. All are called, but few position themselves to be chosen. When we're talking about positioning, we're not talking about what we think in our heads. When we're talking about positioning, we're talking in the physical. Some of the best strategists are on the bench. You could go down to any church, any member, and they'll tell you how to reach the lost. Oh, they'll tell you what works, what doesn't work. I even find it funny as a pastor. One of the challenges is everyone thinks they could do your job. Oh, you know what, Pastor, you should do this. This works. You know what really is going to reach the city of Ipswich? This, and this. But strategists aren't players. The Lord's calling us to be players on the field, to get some skin in the game. To get some skin in the game. It's about throwing on the boots, lacing them up, and asking the coach or God, would you make me brave and show me where to stand? Lord, make me brave and just show me where to stand. They're like, and he'll teach you how to play.